I had always been proud of the life Emily and I built together. Our relationship was solid, or so I thought. We met in our late 20s, both fresh out of relationships and looking for something real, something genuine. And for the first few years, it was. It was perfect, or at least I believed it to be. But somewhere along the way, things started to shift, ever so subtly, so gently that I barely noticed. At first, I shrugged it off as the normal ups and downs of any long-term relationship. People change, they grow, and that's what life is, right? Change, growth, evolution. We'd had our routine, our little rituals morning coffee together, watching movies late at night, talking about everything and nothing. But then one night, everything changed. It wasn't a big argument or a confrontation. There wasn't some dramatic outburst. It was a simple, quiet moment. Emily had always been open with me, but this time, as she sat across from me, I noticed a hesitation in her eyes. A brief flicker of something I couldn't identify. Something distant. She was texting, like she usually did in the evenings, but there was something different about it this time. She wasn't laughing at the memes I knew she would usually share with me. Her face was unreadable, and her fingers moved faster than usual, like she was rushing to hide something. My heart tightened. I tried to ignore it. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, overthinking, but that knot in my stomach kept growing tighter. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice coming out softer than I intended. "Yeah, fine, just work stuff," she replied too quickly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt something shift between us. Something intangible. I didn't press her. I didn't ask any more questions. But as the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Emily had always been honest with me, hadn't she? We'd always had this unspoken trust that was the foundation of everything. And yet, that evening, that fleeting moment of hesitation, left a bitter taste in my mouth. Later that night, as I lay in bed next to her, I turned over, watching her sleep. The soft rise and fall of her chest, the way her hair fanned out across the pillow, it all seemed so ordinary, so safe. And yet, in that moment, I felt an unfamiliar distance. Like I was sleeping next to a stranger, someone I didn't truly know. The next few days passed in a haze. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. Emily wasn't acting overtly strange, but the distance between us was growing. It wasn't that she was cold or dismissive, but there was something different in the way she spoke to me. Her responses were shorter, her smiles less frequent. There was an absence where there used to be warmth. Then, one evening, she was in the shower, and I was cleaning up the kitchen when I saw her phone on the counter. For a moment, I hesitated. It was wrong, I knew that. I trusted her, I told myself. But the pull to check, to see if something was hidden, something I wasn't seeing, became too strong. I picked up her phone. It was unlocked, lying there in plain sight, as if it were begging me to look. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop myself. What if I was right? What if something was wrong? I unlocked the screen, and the first thing that caught my eye was a text from someone named Luke. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure no one finds out." My heart pounded in my chest as I read those words again and again. No one finds out. What did that mean? Who was Luke? And why was she texting him like this? It wasn't the kind of message you send to a friend. The intimacy was palpable, thick with something that made my skin crawl. I felt sick, betrayed, but I didn't confront her. Not then. Not yet. I put the phone down, pretending like nothing had happened, pretending I hadn't just stumbled upon something that shattered everything I thought I knew about us. But I couldn't shake it. The doubt, the fear, the suspicion gnawed at me. I watched Emily as she finished her shower, as she smiled at me, oblivious to the storm raging in my mind. She didn't know I knew, and maybe that's why I stayed silent. Because if I said something, everything would change. The fragile trust we had would break, and I wasn't ready for that. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe it was some inside joke between friends, some harmless text. But every time I saw her pick up her phone, every time I heard a ping from her messages, my stomach twisted. My mind raced, but I couldn't let on that I knew. I couldn't reveal that I had seen what I had seen. For the next few days, I acted normal. I played the part of the loving boyfriend. We had dinner together. We talked about our day, but all I could think about was Luke. Who was he? How long had he been in the picture? And most importantly, why didn't Emily tell me about him? It was torture, this silence between us. The lies hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I started to notice more things, small things that had never bothered me before. The way she suddenly started staying late at work, her excuses for weekend get-togethers with friends that I never met. The way she would get defensive when I asked about her day, as though she was hiding something important. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I started following her. Not in an overt way, not yet, but I began paying attention to her routines, to the places she went when she thought I wasn't watching. The cafe she often mentioned meeting her coworkers at, was she really meeting them? I drove by one afternoon, casually, almost out of instinct, and I saw her there. With him. Luke. It hit me like a punch to the gut. They were sitting together, their heads close, too close. She laughed at something he said, and the way they exchanged glances. There was something undeniably intimate in the way they looked at each other. I should have felt anger. I should have stormed over there and confronted them, but instead, I froze. I couldn't move. My heart beat in my ears. Everything around me faded into the background as I watched them, helpless. I felt like a voyeur in my own life, unable to pull myself away from the unfolding scene. She was with him. They were sharing something I would never be a part of. I drove away slowly, trying to steady my breath, trying to keep my mind from spiraling into something dark. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't pretend that everything was okay. Emily was hiding something from me, something far deeper than I had ever imagined. When I got home that night, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I couldn't bring myself to do it. But inside, everything was shifting. The trust I had built my life on, the stability of our relationship was crumbling before my eyes, and I had no idea how to stop it. The days that followed were a blur of confusion. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen at the cafe, the way Emily and Luke had looked at each other. The weight of it all pressed down on me with every breath I took. I couldn't talk to her, not yet. The words felt like they would tear me apart before I could even speak them. But I couldn't ignore what I knew now. There was a cold knot inside me that twisted tighter with each passing hour. I kept telling myself I had to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe Luke wasn't who I thought he was. Maybe they were just friends, and I was overreacting. But then came the moment I knew, without a doubt, I was right. It was a Thursday afternoon, a couple of days after I saw them at the cafe, when I decided to go for a walk to clear my mind. As I was walking through the park near our apartment, I saw them again. Emily and Luke. But this time, it wasn't just an innocent coffee date. This time, they were standing close to each other, their arms brushing as they talked, their faces just inches apart. And then, the worst part, the part that made my heart drop into my stomach. Luke leaned in and kissed her. I froze. I stood there, hidden behind a tree, unable to look away. My body felt numb. The world around me became distorted, a blur of colors and shapes. All I could focus on was that kiss. The kiss that shattered everything I had believed to be true. It was too real, too intimate, too much. For the longest time, I couldn't move. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I wanted to confront them, but I was paralyzed by the weight of the moment. How could she do this to me? To us? We had built a life together. We were supposed to be partners, and yet here she was, sharing something I would never be a part of. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the silence, the secrecy, the fact that she had never once shown me a hint of guilt or remorse. It was like she had been living two lives, one with me and one with him. And the worst part? She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The way she kissed him, the way they stood there together, oblivious to the world around them, it was as if she had already made her choice. When I got back to the apartment that afternoon, Emily was sitting on the couch, watching TV. She didn't notice me at first, and I stood there for a moment, just watching her. She looked so normal, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She had changed. And now, so had I. "Hey," she said, looking up as I walked into the room. I couldn't speak. Not yet. "You okay?" she asked, her voice sweet, oblivious. I just nodded, trying to steady my breath. I had to keep it together. I had to. But the storm inside me was raging, and every word I didn't say was a piece of me breaking apart. I didn't know what to do. The person I thought I knew, the person I had loved, was no longer standing in front of me. She was someone else, someone I couldn't recognize. The next few days were like walking on a tightrope. I had never felt more disconnected from Emily. The space between us had grown into a chasm, and though we still shared the same space, the same bed, I felt like I was living in a house made of glass. Every movement, every word, every glance, everything felt like it could shatter at any moment. I tried to carry on like everything was fine, but I could feel the lies weighing on me. The tension between us was unbearable. I had seen everything, heard everything I needed to hear, but I was still pretending I didn't know the truth. I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't stand being in the same room as her, pretending that we hadn't reached the point of no return. I had to know. I had to confront her. But I didn't know how to begin. How do you start a conversation like this? How do you begin to unravel a lifetime of trust when it's built on a lie? It was late one night when we were lying in bed that I finally broke. "I know about Luke," I said, the words hanging in the air like a blade ready to fall. Emily stiffened next to me, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, slowly, she sat up. Her body tensed, like she was preparing for a battle. "What do you mean you know?" she asked, her voice low but controlled. "I saw you, with him, at the cafe, the kiss." My voice cracked, but I couldn't stop. "How long, Emily? How long has this been going on?" She didn't say anything for a long time. She just stared at her hands like she was trying to find the right words. But I knew there were no right words. Not anymore. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice a whisper. I didn't want to beg for answers, but I couldn't help it. The pain was sharp, raw. It felt like my heart was being torn apart, piece by piece. "I didn't know how," she said softly, her eyes finally meeting mine. There was no apology in her voice, no regret, just a cold, distant honesty. "I never meant for you to find out like this." My mind spun. I had to force myself to breathe, to focus. The anger was rising in me, but it wasn't just anger. It was hurt. It was betrayal. She had lied to me. And worse, she had been lying to herself, too. "You never meant for me to find out?" I laughed, a hollow, broken laugh. "What did you think would happen? You thought I'd just keep going on, blind to what was happening? Blind to you slipping away from me?" Emily didn't respond. She just sat there looking at me like I was a stranger, like everything I had believed was suddenly irrelevant. "I'm sorry," she said again, but it sounded empty. A hollow apology that wasn't meant for me, but for herself. "I never wanted to hurt you." I shook my head, unable to contain the rush of emotions that flooded through me. Then why did you do it, Emily? Why him? Why not just tell me? Why drag this on for months? Why did you let me love you when you didn't feel the same way? Her silence was deafening. It screamed at me in ways her words never could. In that moment, I realized she was already gone. She had been gone for a long time, and I had just been too blind to see it. "I've been seeing him for months," Emily said, her voice barely audible now. "I didn't know how to leave you. I didn't want to hurt you." I wanted to scream, to shout, to ask her how she could do this to me, to us. But instead, I sat there in stunned silence. I didn't have the strength to confront her, not then. The reality of it all was too much to bear. I stood up, my body shaking, my legs unsteady. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't be in that room, in that bed, in that life that had suddenly been shattered beyond repair. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I can't look at you anymore." And I walked out. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. But I knew one thing. This was the end. The end of everything. The end of what we had. And no matter how much I tried to force it, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. The days that followed felt like I was moving through a dream, a waking nightmare that I couldn't escape. After I walked out that night, I didn't go back. I couldn't. The image of Emily sitting there, her face devoid of remorse, haunted me in the quiet hours when the world around me was asleep. I stayed with a friend for a while, not knowing where else to go. I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. I didn't want to go back to the apartment where everything had crumbled, where every inch of the place felt stained with betrayal. The first few nights, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind over and over again. The words she said to me, the kiss I saw, the coldness in her eyes. She had left me with nothing. I thought I knew her, but I didn't. Not anymore. And the worst part was that I kept wondering if I had missed the signs all along. How long had this been happening? How long had she been living this double life, lying to my face, smiling as if everything was fine? I had been blind, trusting, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of a life I thought I understood. But the pain was different now. It wasn't just the loss of the relationship, the love, the future we had planned. It was the realization that I wasn't enough, that I had loved her with everything I had, and it wasn't enough. I had given her all of me, and she had taken it, only to give herself away to someone else. I stopped responding to her calls. I couldn't talk to her. The voice on the other end of the line, the voice I had once cherished, was now foreign to me. It was a reminder of everything I had lost. The hardest part was seeing her on social media. Her posts, her pictures with Luke, the happy updates. It felt like salt in an open wound. But I couldn't stop myself. I kept checking, even though I knew it would hurt. I had to know. I had to see what was happening, even if it meant I would bleed out inside. A part of me wanted to hate her. A part of me wanted to call her, scream at her, and demand answers. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, even after everything, couldn't bring myself to. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know how to live in a world where everything I thought I knew had been taken from me. It took weeks before I felt even remotely human again. I had moments where the anger and hurt overwhelmed me, moments when I would break down and let the tears come. It was as if my soul had been ripped open, and I was left to stitch it back together. But every time I tried to pull the threads together, they slipped through my fingers. The first time I tried to go back to work, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about her, about the life we had, and how easily it had all been ripped away. I would see couples walking hand in hand, and a pang of jealousy would hit me. An ache so deep, it was suffocating. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me so completely and so easily? I started spending more time at the gym. It was the only place I could go where I didn't have to think about her, about what had happened. The physical exhaustion was a temporary escape, but it was better than drowning in my own mind. I also started talking to my friends again. At first, I had avoided them, not wanting to admit to anyone that my relationship had fallen apart. It was a blow to my pride, to my ego. I had always been the one people looked to for relationship advice, the one who had the perfect life. And now, I was the one with the broken heart. But slowly, talking to them helped. It didn't fix the pain, but it helped to feel heard. They didn't judge me. They didn't pity me. They just listened, and that was enough for now. And then one day, I ran into someone. Her name was Claire. She was a friend of a friend, someone I had met a few times but never really talked to. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't ready to move on. But she was kind, understanding, and she didn't try to rush me. She was patient with my silence, never pushing me to open up, but always there if I needed to talk. At first, I didn't let myself get too close. I couldn't. Emily was still a ghost in my mind, and I wasn't ready to entertain the thought of someone new. But slowly, over time, Claire and I began to spend more time together. She made me laugh. She made me forget, if only for a moment, about everything I had lost. There were moments, fleeting moments, when I felt something stirring in me again, a hint of the person I used to be. But then the guilt would creep in. Was it too soon? Was I betraying Emily by even thinking about someone else? But I wasn't ready to answer that question. Not yet. I realized something, though. Healing wasn't linear. There were days when I felt like I was taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Some days the pain was still unbearable, but other days I could breathe a little easier. I could smile without feeling like I was betraying myself. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened, or even forgiving her. Not yet. But it was about starting to live again. To allow myself to move forward, even if I wasn't sure where I was going. Months passed, and life slowly began to settle into something resembling normality. I had found a new rhythm, a new routine. Claire and I became closer, and though I wasn't ready to label anything, I could feel myself opening up to the possibility of something new. But then, out of nowhere, Emily showed up. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was at a cafe with Claire, talking about work and life. We had just ordered coffee when I saw her. Emily, standing across the room, her eyes scanning the cafe like she was searching for something or someone. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen her since that night, since I walked out. I hadn't spoken to her, hadn't heard from her. And now, here she was, like a ghost from my past. She looked different, more tired, more worn down. Her eyes had that same distant look they'd had when everything began to fall apart. But there was something else. Something in the way she looked at me. Regret. Sorrow. She wasn't the confident woman I had known. She looked fragile, broken in a way I hadn't expected. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just watched as she walked toward me, each step heavier than the last. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes flickered to Claire, then back to me. "Can we talk?" I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I wasn't sure if I was ready for this. Not yet. "I don't think there's anything left to say," I replied, my voice steady but cold. She nodded, looking down at her hands for a moment, as if trying to collect herself. I just wanted to apologize. For everything. For how I treated you. For what I did. My pulse quickened, but I held my ground. "You had your chance, Emily. You had your chance to make things right." She closed her eyes, her face tight with emotion. "I know I can't fix it. I know I can't undo what I did. But I need you to know that I regret everything. Every moment of it. And I'm sorry for the pain I caused you." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to shout about the years I had wasted, the trust that had been broken, the love that had been destroyed. But instead, I just stood there, numb. "I've moved on," I said quietly, looking away. I wasn't sure if that was entirely true, but it felt like the right thing to say. Emily's face twisted with emotion, guilt, sorrow, and something else I couldn't quite place. She opened her mouth to say something more, but I couldn't listen anymore. I turned away, walking back to the table with Claire, who hadn't said a word the entire time. I didn't look back.